Hello, BookTube. Well, none of you are going to be paying any attention to me because you can see the bean in the background. But I'm continuing with my library tour for 2023, which I originally intended as a precious record of my current state of affairs in books. But it is not that because the books have been changing completely. So this is next to useless. But we're going to continue. We're going to forge on here. Let's get the stuff off the shelf and continue with this next shelf from this angle. So we've got one Transwise book. It's from 2018. It was characterized back in 2018 by an old friend of mine as the ultimate Steve book, and it's this. It's the Dogs of Camelot, the Kennedy Canines, which combines. The only thing that's missing here is dead Romans. It's got the dogs and the Kennedys, uh, and it's good. It was good. I don't think This is another example where I don't think I ever got the finished copy. But it's the standard stuff. It's the stuff that you're going to read, that you've read about. If you know about the Kennedy administration, then you know all these stories already. Doesn't matter. I still enjoyed it. Then we have an older book. This is from. Let's see here. It's got one of these onion skin things protecting the front page. It was discarded from the Boston Public Library. This is from 1902. It's by Lillian Whitting, and it is Boston Days. Discarded right there on the cover. And the onion skin is protecting us from a picture of Mr. Whittier. And this is all sorts of, I think this is illustrated. This is all sorts of holograph manuscripts of letters. It's got the usual Bostonian pictures. It's Louisa May Alcott, but let me get you a letter here if I can. Because this is from the age of life and letters. Yeah, oh yeah, look at this. These are not only copies of letters with their manuscripts, but also the whole of the letter. Just unfolds like that, so you can get the whole thing without a transcript. You just get to see what it looks like. That's wonderful. This is just an old Boston book. I have plenty of them. I really enjoy them. So put that back there. The bean seems to have disappeared. Still visible, baby? You are. You're still visible. You're such a tiny little thing, Frida. You are. You're such a tiny little thing. I always forget it until I see you at a distance. She's figuring out what she wants to do with her bed. So let's see. Let's move on here. Okay, this is from the Martha's Vineyard Gazette. I got this from them. This is Travel History of Martha's Vineyard. Tom Dressler there. This is just a story of where the roads were, the brief story of the Martha's Vineyard Railroad, of course the ferry, the history of the ferry that brings people back and forth. And I reviewed this for the Vineyard Gazette. So when I followed my usual custom of cutting out, trimming, and putting in a book review of the book on the shelf, it was one of my own, which is always nice. That is always fun to do. Then we have Herman Turler. This is his book, A Sloth in the Family. This is a crappy trade paperback from, I think, from 2011. So a crappy trade paperback. There is a sloth swimming. That turns out they really like to swim, and they're really good at it. This is full of illustrations of a sloth that the author's family adopted, and his kids became enamored of it and whatnot. And I was interested in this anyway. As you've seen on this library tour, I am interested in the subgenre of books that are books about humans taking in animals from the wild and living with them for a little while. Usually, we saw That Quail Robert, we saw Owl. We've seen a whole bunch of books like that, and there are a whole bunch more. This is the only one I have on sloths, and it was given to me as a rather pointed, rather prickly, sarcastic present by someone in 2011 as a commentary on the fact that I had at the time a gigantic, fat, gassy basset hound who moved about with the speed of a sloth. It wasn't a happy gift. It was meant to poke fun at my little hippo. It was meant to poke fun at my Lucy, by the implication being that I had a sloth in the family at the time. Then right here on the shelf, no particular reason why this should be so, mass market copy of Dune. One of many copies of Dune in this room. Just the classic standard mass market copy of Dune. I'm pretty sure that a whole generation of people encountered this book in this mass market format. I found it secondhand in 21, I think 2021, and just for some reason I put it on the shelf in here. Okay, this next one is by Andrew Pettigrew. This is great. It's a fantastic book. This was from Yale. This is The Book in the Renaissance. A history of bookmaking, book distribution, especially book selling. Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating to know what books, the mainstay of all our lives, what form it was like. If you were, middle class and had a little bit of disposable income and you wanted to buy a book in Ferrara in 1560, what would you do? Did you ever do that? And if you did, where did you go? And what were your assumptions? Fascinating. The only but you hear hovering around is that, of course, it's the usual but. It's that it doesn't belong here. This is a work of history. It's a book history, so it either belongs with all my history books or it belongs with all my books, but it doesn't belong in here. Okay, this is a classic. This is a classic, and it was a classic plume cover that I had to have. I've had this in many different formats, but this is Dancer from the Dance by Andrew Holleran. Those washed out photo covers, Plume did a bunch of these at the time. I wonder if this will tell me. The Plume edition came out in the 90s, I think. Oh no, 1986. So right in the heart of things. And they did a whole bunch like this. All the early Men on Men anthologies had these kinds of washed out photo covers. But Dancer from the Dance, again, like that mass market copy of Dune, I'm pretty sure that this is the copy that a million people read this book in. So I decided after a while that that's what this room would be for. It would be for not only the books I love, but the shape that I love them. Then this next one is by Thomas Mallon. This is fantastic. I just love this book. I had a trade paper of it forever and ever. Or rather, I kept getting trade paperback copies of it because mine kept falling apart. I go back to it a lot. This is a book of one's own in hardcover. This is People and Their Diaries, where Mallon goes through famous diaries, slightly less famous diaries, and writes about what diary keeping is. What are we doing when we keep a diary? Are we expecting anyone to ever read it? Are we ever going to reread it? What does it do that attracts so many people? And I got it, of course, because I've kept a diary for a very, very long time, and I love this. Absolutely love it. Then we have a big, beautiful hardcover of Kathleen Winsor's book, Forever Amber, her big historical novel about a rags to riches story, a woman who makes it big in historical times. The costuming on the cover is completely anachronistic, but the cover is just great. It's got the illustrations extend all the way to the spine. And then we have this priceless picture of the femme fatale author. It's just incredible. Looks like a young oh my god, I'm blanking on her name. Professor McGonagall. The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie. Ooh, I'm blanking on the name. I can't believe it. Maggie Smith. That's the author. This is just terrific. As far as a big, fat, compulsively readable, unbelievably guilty pleasure historical novel goes, you can't beat it. Can't beat Forever Amber. Okay, then we have a book by James Davidson. This was when he was a little troublemaker instead of an older troublemaker. This is One Mykonos. This is not one of his big historical books. This is a little memoir of his of the time he spent swimming and sunbathing and showering and rogering like a bunny on the Greek island of Mykonos. That's why it has the kind of cover that it does. And this thing, I don't know if you can make it out. This thing is one of the few books I have that survived the fire that I had. It claimed almost my whole collection and certainly destroyed. This was in the biography shelf when I had it originally. And there was a fire. It wasn't in the room with the books, but the fire department didn't know that. So when they got there, I wasn't home. I was on vacation. The first vacation I'd taken in years. I was out of state. And the fire department got there and blasted out the front window and just were blasting a solid stream of water into the front room. And it was going straight through the air and just hitting my biography wall, just blasting against it for probably an hour. There was no fire in that room, but the fire department's going to do what it's going to do. And when I got back home, when I finally got back home, there was just a mound of wet paper in the middle of that room. And most of the books weren't recoverable at all. And this one was one of the few that was. This can still be read, so I don't need to find another copy of One Mykonos. Okay, this was a gift from one of you, and I cannot thank you enough. This is Roger Lancelin Green. We've seen him a couple of times before. This is my favorite book of his in the hardcover version that I originally read it in. When was that? Are you going to tell me? Are you going to give me any kind of information here? 1960. It's an older book than that, but this is a version that I saw. It's Heroes of Greece and Troy, his volume retelling the ancient Greek myths in a better way than anyone that I know of, or what? Maybe not better, but I am permanently sentimentally in love with his version of things. So he's always going to be number one for me. Oh, okay. Well, there we have number two. This is Edith Hamilton's Mythology in a lovely hardcover. There was a bigger a new edition of Edith Hamilton's Mythology, but it didn't have the original beautiful, stylish illustrations. And this copy is full of those illustrations. Let me show you another one. And I got the new copy from the publisher. Look at that, Orpheus and Eurydice leaving the underworld. How wonderful! I got the new copy from the publisher, probably 5 years ago, and I had it in this room for a long time. I think it might have appeared in the last shelf tour in this room. And then again, like with that copy of Dune or that copy of Dancer from the Dance, I realized that this is the form I want. I want those illustrations. So I found this at the Brattle. Then we have this was a very generous gift. This is the illustrated edition of Unfinished Tales by J.R.R. Tolkien and Christopher Tolkien. Beautiful thing with the built-in cloth bookmark and plenty of. You've got black and white spot illustrations for the beginnings and ends of some chapters, but you also have beautiful full color illustrations. Let me get you one of those. Look at that. Oh my, how lovely. How just incredible that is. The moonlight shining there. Let's get another one. This is just terrific. Of course, the Unfinished Tales is just that. So look at that. Amazing. So, reading this as a straightforward narrative is not advised on the label. It's not going to satisfy you that way. But individual stories inside it certainly will. It was sort of the sequel to the Silmarillion, which has a much more structured narrative wholeness to it, and that's the same thing. I also have the illustrated Silmarillion, just beautiful volume. There's the back cover, and here you have lots and lots of lovely color illustrations. The kind of thing that, much as I hate to say it, let's see here. The Rings of Power in the Third Age. There we go. That's the forging of the One Ring. See that? With all the vastness up above to emphasize the importance of the action down at the bottom. This also has the built-in cloth bookmark, and I just love this book. I absolutely love it. I love this form too, although with the Silmarillion, when it comes to the Silmarillion, the original mass market paperback, the one that sold 1 million copies, the one, I'm sure you would know the cover illustration, and we will come across it because it's in this room. I don't think it's within reach. We'll come across it. There's another version. There are many versions of the Silmarillion, but there's another one that I really love as well. So I have multiple ones. I wasn't going to pass up an illustrated version. And then to finish off here, this is a self-published book by D.K. Marley, and it is another example of a self-published book about Christopher Marlowe. I've read 80 million adventures by Christopher Marlowe in one form or another in fiction. This one is called Blood and Ink. Fairly simple, self-published design with a cover description on the back. You won't really be able to tell. From this cover, but that is very pixelated. The cover is very pixelated, and that's maybe when this came out, 2010. Maybe that was unavoidable. That would be avoidable now. Definitely. I would take you to task if you did a self-published book and had it such a pixelated, you can't make it out in this crappy camera, but that's supposed to be readable. And no matter how close you get to it, it won't be. This is supposed to be nice and crisp and sharp, and no matter how close you get to it, it won't be. Because it's pixelated. Because the cover illustration was the wrong size. And either the author didn't know how to fix that, or the author didn't think it would be noticeable. It is noticeable. Every detail in a book is noticeable. Nowadays, if an author did that, I would take them to task, because that self-publishing has to be above stuff like that. But the book was very good, and you'll notice on the back, Christopher Marlowe, it says 1564 and then question mark. Oh, we don't know when he died. We don't know. Death had witnesses, including the murderer, but we don't know. But anyway, that's another shelf in dodgy lighting here as we continue this increasingly pointless library tour. So I'll wrap this up, and I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.